Hey, Rhonda,
Okay,
continue.
so
Okay, will you do me a favor? I would like to share my screen, but it says host has disabled attendee share screen share.
okay, I can do that.
Some
Okay,
people might want to mute their mics also.
that could be mine. Okay, all right, you should be able to do that. So, all right, well, welcome everybody to Ready, Set, Go, and this is, I think, our fifth one. And last week was on math, so if you missed the math one, definitely want to jump over and watch as Kim went through our math program. But tonight we're going to talk about our English program. And next week, we will be talking about Google Classroom for Parents. So that is the night that you're going to definitely want to make sure you attend, and you print off the join codes that we'll be posting, and we're going to walk you guys through how to use Google Classroom for your students. So, but tonight we get to focus in on our English program, so I'm going to turn it over to them. And like I said, if you all have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll try to get those answered. So Jen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Michelle Craig. I have a son who graduated from the program and is graduated from college and married, and just thrilled with his memories of going to school at Paideia. I have a daughter who is a D student, and she is just ready to soar. She's been in the program since she was, I think she was 2. So she's done the full gamut and really lives, breathes, and thinks like you should. It's really exciting that she's been in it that long. And I started teaching Latin, and that's still my passion and where I love, but also because Latin grammar is English grammar, I have seamlessly gone over to the English side also. And this year, not teaching many classes in English, but overseeing the English department, hand in hand with Jen as she does the upper, going down into the G4 down to the G1 levels. So writing the homework charts and planning out ideas for books and study guides and activities for classroom for English.
I may have to go tell my kids to get off my internet. I think I just got kicked off. We'll see how this goes.
Okay. So you
We'll
lost
see.
the screen share there. Okay.
Yeah, but now I can't go back. I don't,
Uh,
hold on. Hold on. It's going through my presentation without me.
Uh-oh.
Okay, am I still sharing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I took notes so that I could keep my train of thought, keep my thoughts going more clearly. So if I look like I'm reading something, it's because I'm reading something. But my name is Jennifer Fruworth, and we have been with Paideia for 10 years, and I've been homeschooling for 11 years. My son, Jack, is a senior this year with Paideia, and Joe is 16. He is in the D level, and my daughter Allison is 13, and she's in the C level this year. So I am the rhetoric level English teacher on the Spring campus. And you guys, I'm going to be introducing you to a lot of new and impressive sounding words today, but I also run the risk of intimidating you with my greatness. But don't be intimidated, because I'm not really that great. But I have learned a lot in the amount of time that I've been around in Paideia. And but when I began this journey, I felt inadequate to the task of homeschooling altogether. I was I felt incredibly inferior to the other parents that were around and the people teaching on campus. And I was very intimidated by all the big, impressive sounding words. But I don't know, perhaps you guys can relate to that. But the thing is, all of that was normal, and it is normal for you because we're in the grammar phase. I was in the grammar phase, and you are in the grammar phase. And that means that you're learning all this new vocabulary with Paideia, and you're understanding what's expected of you. But the good news is, after many years of educating myself along with my children and being mentored and taught by very godly, wise women like Johnny, I have moved through the dialectic phase, and I'm now, hopefully, I think I am, in the rhetoric level phase. So hopefully I can communicate to you my hard-earned knowledge and convince you that you are in the right place and that we are all on the right track. So that's with no further ado. Before I start though, I would like to ask you to unmute your mics and answer a few questions for me. The first one is, describe your feelings about public speaking. Anyone? Just love public speaking?
I get nervous about it. I'm afraid I'm going to stutter.
My voice gets shaky.
I like public speaking. I would have gone first, but my son walked in to use the bathroom.
I like public speaking if I am knowledgeable about the subject and passionate about it. Then it comes easy to me. If I'm not, then I feel inadequate and not sure of myself, not very confident.
Excellent. Hi, Becca. Nice to see your face, by the way.
Hi.
I would say that I think that most people probably feel like Kim was saying, that public speaking, just they would rather do anything but. But if you do feel good about public speaking, that's awesome. Then you should really be on track for helping your kid write well. And because the end result of writing is also a person being able to speak well. Next question. Name someone whose oratory skills you admire. Can be past, present, whatever.
Well, I say Jen.
Oh, wow. Thanks.
God gave you a great voice, and it's just neat that you're using it, and it's good to be in your presence and hear you talk.
I mean, Michelle, you beat us all.
Sorry.
But Margaret Thatcher is wonderful.
And
Absolutely. What about her oratory do you really like?
She's just, I feel like she's very strong and but yet calm. Like she's not like yelling at you, but she's still like very forceful. So I don't know, just, politically, it was really wonderful hearing her speak.
Okay. Anybody else have any other things you want to share?
I'm starting to read Plato. I think his oratory skills are pretty amazing, the way he gets around and, gets everybody to, go along with what he thinks somehow. I like the way he does that.
Louise, wouldn't it have been amazing to get to hear him speak?
Yeah, I try to imagine it in my ears when he speaks, but then I realized that he's not really saying those words because the author says things like, no doubt about it. And they didn't say no doubt about it back then, did they? I mean, she always puts no doubt about it. And I'm like, this isn't right. Something's goofy there.
That's true. It's true. So
this
this next, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, this is Heather. I was just going to say someone fairly modern and young that I admire is Kaylee McEnany, if that's how you say her name. I think she's pretty concise and to the point and expresses herself well.
Excellent. Excellent. So this next question, it's more of a rhetorical question, because I have some short video clips to answer it, but so you guys can mute again. Is it really important to be able to think quickly and speak well? Our first one, sorry if you've seen this, we're going to listen a little bit, see what this lady has to say.
Audio is missing.
Yeah, Jim, we can't hear that. I don't know why.
Is it not going?
I mean, we can see the video, see her talking,
but you can't hear it.
So I don't know if you need to do something on your video screen.
Huh, that is strange. Let me see. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry, guys. It's really not that important. It was just, they're just kind of funny videos. But let's see. Can I bet I can change the preferences real quick. Audio needs to be, okay.
Let's try this. Okay. Let me try again. Is that better?
I still can't hear it. It is a funny video though. I've seen it before. She talks circles and doesn't answer the question, and very silly.
Oh man, that's a bummer. Okay, well, that's too bad. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. Well, that's a bummer. Maybe it's because I'm listening, talking with my ear pods in. I tried to switch it so that it came through. But so, yeah, she got up there and it was just a really, really poor, rhetoric. And then we had President Obama, who his teleprompter stopped working and he couldn't speak all of a sudden. He made no sense and was saying very silly things. And then the next one was another guy. I'll try to post this and you can watch him if you want to or whatever. But his whole thing, he was a guy running for office, and his whole thing is he kept yelling like this. His tone the whole time was like wrestling. And you're just like, oh my gosh, stop. And then he went through and he listed all of his, he got a bachelor's in this and a bachelor's in that, and then a master's in this. And then there's this long pause. And he said, and I got a master's in communication. And I was just like, oh, wow, we have got to watch that video. It was pretty great. So they were all just really great videos of what not to do and why it is so important to be able to speak well. And that's why we have designed our program at Paideia the way that we have. So we endeavor to teach children to be able to think on their feet, to organize their ideas and present their ideas in an effective manner, whether in writing or in speaking. We do that from the bottom up, but it is best explained actually from the top down. And I'm gonna have to figure out my audio problem before I show the next video. I just realized that.
Yeah. Or can we
That's
put it in
okay.
the chat? I don't know.
I will figure that out. If I have to take these out and unhook all of that stuff, I will. But anyway, so at the rhetoric level, students write and present a research thesis project, as well as write and compete in oratory competitions in Dr. Johnny's rhetoric class. In the dialectic level, students learn the building blocks of writing persuasively through the progymnosmata exercises. See, I told you I was going to use some fancy words. Progymnosmata simply means you can see the root there, gymnasium there, and it's where you would go exercise, right? So it's pro is pre, right, Michelle? Am I saying this right?
Well, pre or in front of, yeah.
Yeah, in front of, so it's the pre-exercises. So it's what you would do before speaking, before rhetoric. And then in all levels, students study and mimic the words of great writers as we study the great books in our literature study. And they practice memory and recitation skills through the poetry and other various memorization projects. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to try to disconnect here. Turn off that. Okay, now can you hear me on my computer? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but I
Yes,
don't know where
yes.
it's coming from.
Okay, it's coming from my computer now. So
Okay.
I'm hoping that this helps make the audio work. So let's go back to the research thesis project. Let's see. Oops. We go back to the research thesis project. The best way for me to describe the purpose behind what we do is to let you see for yourself. I'm going to show you a video of one of my students presenting their research thesis project.
Telling
Now,
you to drink.
Now, this is not really a shameless mom's brag. I mean, it is kind of a brag because you notice the last name is Fruworth. But this just happens to be the only video that I had that had good audio as well. And, but any of my students last year, I could have used any of their presentations to illustrate this point. They were all excellent. But the real reason I want you to see this is to cast a vision for you. This will be your son or daughter someday. It just happens to be my son now. So, but just so you know, this speech was about 17 minutes long. So for the sake of time, I have cut it to the introduction and the conclusion only. And, but it'll be enough for you to get the idea. So let's see if we can. Okay, hopefully this works.
Hi guys, my name is Joe Fruworth, and this is my research thesis presentation. It's titled, Why Your Lack of Sleep is Killing You. A bright young college student stares, smiling, at the 96 out of 100% on his calculus test. Let's call him Tim. Tim goes off campus for lunch, then takes a short jog with a friend. Around 7 p.m., he starts roaming from party to party, sharing drinks and stories. Around 3:37 a.m., he finally stumbles back to his dorm room and flips off the light switch. Then remembers he has to study for a chemistry final. Signed, he turns back on the light switch, grabs his textbook, and begins to study. He studies throughout the early hours of the morning, writing down formulas and definitions in a drowsy, sleep-addled haze. Rubbing his pretty eyes, Tim thinks to himself, sure, cramming all night for a final was definitely not ideal, but really, no harm done, right? Tim continues this cycle for the rest of the semester, getting little to no sleep on weeknights, then passing on for 11 to 12 hours on weekends. If only he knew the true, unforgiving costs of sleep deprivation. Throughout history, sleep was somewhat a mystery. While some valued it with great importance, others completely disregarded its importance. For example, Albert Einstein himself was known to sleep well above 10 hours per night, and while he was regarded as lazy for it, his intellectual achievements are undeniable. In addition to this, Winston Churchill himself slept for around 7 hours each night, regardless of the situation, even when his country was fighting for its life in the midst of World War II. He also took a 30-minute nap around 5 p.m., regardless of the situation. We've regarded sleep as an enabler to productivity. Different to this, Thomas Edison, famous inventor, slept for only 3 to 4 hours a night and regarded sleep as a big liability. However, we will discuss that more later. For thousands of years, people slept when the sun went down, unless they could afford such luxuries as artificial light, such as candles or lanterns. Only until very recently did humans not have to sleep because of lack of light. Because of this age of technology, our biological clocks are being offset by artificial light, resulting in sleep deprivation. After all, why would a person want to sleep when they could just binge Netflix instead? Now, sleep is a very broad and complex topic, so it's best to define several terms. Sleep can be defined as a natural periodic state marked by the absence of wakefulness and consciousness, which induces changes in the brain activity. The necessary amount of hours of sleep differs between teens and adults, as teens need 9 hours of sleep a night, and adults really only need 7 to 8 hours a night. Another important term in sleep is melatonin, which is a hormone that the body secretes in order to fall asleep. Sleep deprivation is an issue because constant sleep deprivation results in the death of neurons because of toxins that build up in the brain. The death of these neurons can cause neurodegenerative disorders, such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease. Sleep is like a Zamboni going over an ice skating rink, smoothing everything out and restoring and refreshing the brain. Sleep deprivation is an issue, and it has, for the most part, gone unnoticed and unchecked. With all that information, the question must be asked, what can be done about this? Many argue about how high schools need to start later, and while this may be true, that will not fundamentally fix this issue. The people of the modern generation, adults and teens and children alike, must set reasonable sleep schedules and stick to them. Because lack of sleep in the modern generation is permanently damaging the brains of people today. Throughout the night, the body shifts through different sleep stages that affect and recover night's sleep in separate.
Yeah, that was his introduction.
Together, we've explored the topic of sleep, from how and why the body must sleep to the history of sleep. We discussed the science of REM and NREM sleep stages, and circadian rhythm and its disruption because of blue light. After, we moved on to consider the short-term effects of sleep loss, and ended with an analysis of the irreparable costs of sleep deprivation. Now, let us return to the story of the college student introduced at the beginning of this paper. The death of neurons because of sleep deprivation does not occur quickly. It happens because of a long-standing, unhealthy cycle of sleep. However, hear me when I say this. You, who stay up gaming far later than it always goes for you. You believe that energy drinks are a far better supplement to sleep. And you, parents who drink coffee after coffee, thinking that this does not apply to you. This applies to all of us, no matter the walk of life. Getting more sleep can help you think clearly, improve your mood, reduce stress, and reduce the likelihood of many, many harmful diseases, in addition to countless other things. If any of you are having a hard time sleeping, try getting more exercise during the day and more time in the sun, and put away your phone a little earlier this morning. If we set goals to eat healthier or exercise more, why shouldn't we set goals for more consistent sleep time as well? Unfortunately, lack of sleep is accepted in modern culture. It's even sometimes seen as a respectable thing. But as a human being, there comes a time for you to decide. Decide whether you are satisfied with following the herd and abiding by what your peers say is acceptable, whether you will choose to rise above the masses and strive to be the greatest possible version of yourself. Thank you.
Okay, so like I said, all of my students were that gave presentations were they followed the same formula. They and they all were very impressive. They each choose a topic that is very interesting to them, and then research that topic and in depth, and then they have to write a paper, and it's a full MLA research paper with citations, and it's like it ends up being like 20 pages, and then they slice and dice that down into about a page that's about a paper that's a speech that's about 7 to 8 pages long. I think Joe's was 8.5 pages, and you'll notice that he gave a lot of cadence. He slowed down, gave you time to think about stuff. He didn't rush through it. So his entire speech ended up being about 17 minutes. But let's go to the next slide.
Hi guys, my name is Joe Forth. Hi guys.
Wait, there. Okay, sorry. Okay, so in Dr. Johnny's rhetoric class and in the rhetoric level English class especially, we talk about the 5 canons of rhetoric, and that is what you saw in that speech, whether you realized it or not. 2 of the canons are kind of obvious. You saw memory and delivery. You may have noticed that a large portion of Joe's speech was memorized, and he only referred to his notes once in a while, just kind of keep him on task, on track. And he also spoke in a manner that made his content impactful and memorable. So those are 2 of the 5 canons of rhetoric that we study. One of them, and the next one that I'd like to bring attention to and kind of talk about a little bit, is arrangement. And again, remember I told you I was going to teach you some fancy words. Exordium is really just the introduction of the story. And sometimes they'll tell engaging, you try to engage your audience with a narrative, something, a story of some sort. Then the narratio is a statement of facts, and it lays out in brief detail why your topic is important and why it is something that needs to be addressed. The partitio outlines the main points of the arguments and ends with your thesis statement. You saw all of that stuff in the introduction of Joe's speech. I completely cut out the confirmatio, which is his arguments and proofs, and the counter arguments, or the refutatio. And then I skipped right to the peroratio, which was his conclusion. When he wrapped up, he talked about all of the things that he reminded you of, everything that he talked about, and then brought the story from the introduction back around. I cut that too, sorry. And it had a very powerful plea to pathos and encouraging you, your emotional appeal to make sure that you get enough sleep. It's really important for you. So each one of the kids used, when they wrote their paper, they wrote each part of this, and then they included the most important pieces of it into their speech. The next part of the canon of rhetoric is the rhetoric of style. And that's where you're going to hear some literary devices like alliteration or, metaphors, imagery, things like that to really engage your audience and your reader and to make it memorable. And you're going to really see the appeal to ethos in the exordium and the narratio. So the introduction, statement of facts, the ethos, it builds you credibility for your audience. Why are they going to listen to you? Then logos is all about facts and arguments. And so of course that's going to be, you're going to have a lot of logos in the confirmatio, refutatio, and pathos, again, that's the appeal to emotions. Okay, so these topics of invention, whoo-wee. Okay guys, here we go. This is where we're going to see the writing come in. This is the connection to what we're doing with the dialectic and grammar level writing. It's in the topics of invention. Let me erase that stuff. So these topics of invention are basically, if you're building a persuasive paper or you're building, you have to write a speech, you have to have things to be able to talk about. So the topics of invention are like building blocks, and you can use them in different parts of your speech. So I won't go ahead and read all of these because it would be boring for me to read through them, but in the definition, in the very introduction of Joe's speech, we heard him define some of his terms, and he also defined his argument as well. He told you what it's going to be about and what it's not going to be about. Then he gave a narration. He gave a fictitious story about a college student. And in the end, he tied back into that narration, that fictitious story, and talked about how that guy now has Alzheimer's, basically. He drew comparisons in his argument. He talked about, which you didn't hear, but I'm giving you examples. He talked about Thomas Edison's sleep habits, which were like minimal. He disregarded sleep, versus Albert Einstein, who slept like 17 hours a day, or no, 12 hours a day, not 17, 12. And so he compared those and really, talked about, use that as part of his argument and his counter argument. Cause effect, that's kind of obvious, lack of sleep causes Alzheimer's, is what his premise was. So anyway, those are topics of invention when we talk about rhetoric. But how does that translate to the writing curriculum? Well, students learn and practice these topics of invention in the progymnosmata exercises. This year, the dialectic and upper grammar level will be using Eileen Cunningham's book, Writing the Classical Way, with the Ancients, which provides writing samples to study from the great thinkers and writers of the ancient world. Our writing prompts come from the literature that we're studying or the history that we're studying. The classical progymnosoma, I'll just read what's on the slide, is a set of writing exercises intended to prepare students for the creation and performance of rhetoric, a crucial component of classical and Renaissance rhetoric pedagogy. Many progymnosoma exercises correlate directly with the parts of classical oration that I was talking about, the topics of invention. If you think about it, when classical writing comes from the Greeks, it was an oral culture. They probably didn't do a whole lot of writing at the time, right?
I found that there's no speeches available for elections and like that public speaking. There's just no record of them.
So it would have been for the practice of oration, getting up and talking at the forum, arguing at the forum. But for us, we're more of we're a literate culture, right? So we do write things. So it's important for us to be able to not only speak well, but also write well. And these exercises are writing exercises that also will translate to speaking and rhetoric. Let's see. Is there anything else I need to cover with that? Okay. But so these are.
That shows uniformity for the book, that we're going to use it from the G4 all the way up. So families can, the G4 will go at a slower pace. So if you have a D student, and then you'll be ahead of the game, and then maybe the following quarter, the grammar level will be doing that.
Yeah, excellent. And the D1 and D2, for the most part, we've really tried to, Mary and I really tried to make sure that their compositions are going to be very similar, and they're going to be studying the same part of the book at least. So,
question. Okay, so for the parents, do they need to buy more than one of these?
I would say no. Well, you want it in class, won't you?
Yeah, let me get that book.
I don't know that you'll need it so much in class.
Well, there's going to be some exercises that you're going to do in class. So, but I would say if you read on the weekly lesson plan that they're going to do such and such an exercise in class, then you could photocopy and send those photocopies, but that's going to get old. So I don't know. I would just suggest getting each kid a book. These are the progymnosoma exercises, and as you're going to see, you can recognize that a lot of them are very similar to the topics of invention. And then the next thing I would just wanted to mention is that at the parent conference next week, my kids and I will be giving a presentation about the Convocation Project, but I'm going to bring it up now just to make the point that the skills that the students learn in English are put to action in the Convocation Project. And this project which is done as a family or a group, is the best training for the students to complete the research thesis project later on as they're older. But they're going to do some research skills, reading the books, and annotating it. Then they're going to be writing. They're going to summarize what they have, read, and they're going to organize it for their presentation. And then then you have the presentation, the actual oral rhetoric skills that, man, that's gold. That's gold. I mean, you didn't, Joe just didn't just start. He wasn't just naturally a good speaker. He has done many, many, many convocation projects over the years, and that it's built that skill. So what else do I need to say about convocation here?
Well, in a moment, can we have Rhonda, the chat is disabled. So if anybody had questions, they can't chat in. So if Rhonda has control over the chat window.
It doesn't look like it's disabled.
Oh, I went to make a chat and I can't. I just have a screen that says chat disabled and I cannot put anything in.
I don't know why that would be, but go ahead, and if anyone has questions, you can put it in.
I can't type because I was going to.
It's on now. I don't know what I clicked, but I see it.
And now I'm going to stop talking for a while. And if you guys have any questions, we can always go back to something. But and I'm sorry, this is absolutely like drinking from the fire hose, and I hate that. I hate that phrase. But I don't know how else to do this. So yeah.
So we're going to go, it's bottom up, top down. We're trying to really put everything together. So all our young students, as you saw in that video of Joe speaking, they showed the audience and the kids were just all beautifully watching him. So we want our kids at the youngest age even to understand what they're doing in their skill level is training them and moving them towards the idea of presentations when they get older. So the A level or the G4 level will definitely use that same writing book. But when we go down into G3, we're going to use the Classical Academic Press, which is a wonderful publisher that is, we've been using their grammar books in the young group, or no, up in the upper groups, but now we're going to bring them down into the grammar level. So for E3, we're going to use the writing and rhetoric. The first semester, which is the first 2 quarters, they're going to do fables. So everybody in the school is going to start out with fables. It just is, depending on your age, you're going to stay in fables longer because you're still in that grammar young age. You're going to just stay there for a while because those kind of stories really do appeal to them. They're shorter and they can learn to mimic and write from them. So we're giving them source text to use. And this is going to be done in E3 and E2. We're just going to kind of, in the homework charts, you'll see a little similarity with things, but they don't actually have the books. Even E1, we're going to just kind of put little things in with the teacher in class time. So they'll definitely be getting it from the littlest, not the early learners, but definitely the G1 all the way up. We'll do a little bit of gymnastica exercises to get the idea of teaching, thinking, and noticing what is in good text. And so we'll start out with fables and then move to narrative the second semester and tell stories, like the idea of Gilgamesh, telling a story. Then we're also going to be memorizing all these segments like she was going over with all these good quality real terms. We'll be doing a lot of memory so the kids understand how to order their thoughts and how to order a paper, whether it's just a essay or later on moves into preparing for convocation or moves into the research thesis. So the next slide. Almost everybody's doing a journal prompt. So we're going into a lot of the literature-based things, responding to literature through writing, thinking through. So we have the study guides. They'll get journal prompts to get engaged with what literature they're reading and put that down in writing. That won't have as much structure, but it gets them thinking and engaging with literature, and still a writing element, but not with all the structure and rules and ideas that go with it. We're going to do a lot of literary elements. We'll be using Quizlet to really fill the little ones up with a lot of literary element definitions, and just playing hide and seek and trying to find it in the literature. We don't read books just to, there's a front cover, there's the back cover. I'm just going to get through, find out what happens to the main character and be done. We want to open a book and look at it and learn to analyze. Why are words there? What is the foreshadowing? Taking time in the beginning when a new character is established. What is those descriptive words that the author was so careful to put in that is going to have a play back at the end of the book? It's interesting if you read the characteristics that are front of the book and then go to the end and either see how different they are. Either they're almost exactly different. There's even some books when the characters go through so much change and growth that they look different. Their facial features are actually different. And that, is the Greek hero, the idea that you start as a person, but when you end the story, you are so much, you're a mighty, mighty different character, back in the same spot from your rise of action and conflict, but you're a much better person. So these literary devices are very important to have kids pay attention to, take the time to just see and look in their literature for that. So this is going to be the year of grammar skills. We've really done a good job picking some really good books or literature, but we also want to give parents the time to invest in grammar skills with their students and in the classroom. So first language lessons will be done in the classroom for G1, G2. They will be PDFs for you to do at home, basically just following along and helping them memorize the definition of parts of speech, memorize poems, memorize fables. So they'll be provided for you in a PDF form. So you won't actually have a grammar book for your students, but they are doing grammar. They're doing it in class and you will help assist it, but we just didn't see the value in you having the book also. Then we move into G3, G4. They both will be using well-ordered language, but at different levels. So the G3 uses book 1, A and B, and G4 will use 2, A and B. It's a unique system that they've created, maybe so kids don't have big books in their backpacks, but you actually buy 2 books to get through the year. And that's the same even for G3 writing, because you're going to have the fable for one semester and then the narrative for the second semester. So these also will include more fables. So our kids are going to really see and read and understand all of the known ancient fables, to look at all their different moral teachings. And we talked about, so handwriting would be the next skill. We are going to incorporate, as we always have, give you a book to do exercises at home, but we're going to try to do more in the classroom to show it, have the teachers write more in cursive, to force the kids to see it, learn it, struggle with it, and also just have that I can do it attitude. Let me try it, and try to turn in work with it. It's in cursive. So we're going to use the classical cursive, which they start out with just letters and like the books of the Bible. And then the G4 or G3 and G4 will actually do the catechisms. So these are the standard ways people from hundreds of years learned all their church teaching and doctrines is through the catechism. So they'll be copying those statements. So in their practice, they're learning how great God is and who they are in response to God. Then spelling for G2 and 3, they'll be doing traditional spelling, which also incorporates the handwriting skills. And we're going to do that also in class. We're going to now this year bring in spelling test in the class. So to have that social, you know, ooh, either a spelling bee, or just so that the kids realize that they're going to have to master their words that week, because there'll be a quiz probably every Tuesday for their words. So not just giving parents the books at home, but also doing more to engage it in class as a social environment with these words and with their writing. The A level, the G4 level is using spelling workout. They did not have a level 3 book for traditional spelling. So we had to move back to spelling workout that we've used in the past. But again, we're going to incorporate it in class and have the spelling test and talk about the words, maybe encourage them to use it in their writing. We're going to find ways to just bring that home time work into the classroom. For reading, we want to give kids time to learn the skill of reading when they're young. So we're going to have lots of phonic readers in the classroom and for checkout for going home. And the Phonics Museum will be a new program we're using, and that is worksheet pages teaching the sounds, but also giving readers for them to slowly feel confident in reading pages of a book. The younger ones are going to use poetry, because that is poetry, with all the data it shows is how important that young kids see the chant and the rhythm of the poetry, how important that is. So we're going to use A Child's Introduction to Poetry, which has a CD so they can play it at home, have communication in class about it and talk about it. And then of course we'll have all our wonderful classical novels right down from G1 all the way up. A lot of the novels can be done in audio form, which we highly encourage. There's a lot of scientific data on how important it is that you listen to good quality literature. It's even more important probably to sit with your boys when they're in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, to just sit and actually read to them out loud good quality literature, because that's when they're really starting to understand all the grammar they've been told. And when they hear that at a slow pace out loud, their brain is connecting to that grammar. You know, it's important you sit and read with your young ones to encourage them to read, but it really is important to read all the way up more complicated sentences. But also we want to give them books that they can read themselves. That's important too, as we develop that skill of reading. But these are good quality literature books that they just need to understand how it made Western civilization and made us who we are based on good
Absolutely.
novels.
Michelle, I'd like to jump in here. I didn't actually make a slide for the grammar lessons for the dialectic level, but we are using a curriculum called English Grammar Recitation. And this is a very simple, they have grammar questions or rules to memorize and examples of those rules, and then every week they have to be able to recite those. So it incorporates memory, it incorporates a little bit of copy work, and then there's some workbook, you know, workbook work, but it's just, usually it's just 2 pages every week. And you get some sentence diagramming, yeah, but the object of the grammar lessons is really to incorporate that into their writing, in their journal, in their, you know, to see them really start using it, yeah, in their writing. So that's the dialectic levels, both of them. And then the rhetoric level, it's just a self-paced mastery program. And they have to pass a mastery test every quarter. But it's really on their own. They have to do it on their own. Is that the book 3 that you have, Mary? Or is that book 4? Yeah. Anyway, And then handwriting and spelling, typing, those are skill building things that are really on your own at home. We don't take grades on that necessarily in class, and it's not something that we teach in class at the dialectic and rhetoric level. It is important, and if your kid needs to work on it, they should work on it at home. But and we have plenty of resources and websites and curriculum to be able to suggest to you, but it's not really something that we just don't. Yeah, 2 days a week we don't have time. So anyway, and it's, yeah, skill building, like even vocabulary, you know, improving your vocabulary or test taking. We do provide test taking opportunities. So that's good. And yeah, anything else I'm missing, Mary? Can you think of anything that I needed to mention there?
There's also journal. Well, you get a journal slide, so that's okay.
I do. Okay.
Yeah. So there are some elements to English class that are proprietary products. So you have, so Jen showed you have your Writing the Classical Way, and then you have a grammar book. But the school prints out and publishes study guides for each of the books that the students read. And so those start out with just there you go, a great introduction. It's really important for you as a parent, if you are not able to read the book with your child, that you at least read the introduction there that tells you the background information for the book. And then you should be able to go through each week. It tells you how much of the book they're supposed to read, and it gives you discussion questions. So you can prompt your child if it is a book that you're not able to, you know, we know many of you have many children, and so you won't be able to read every book with your child, but we will ask you to go over the parent discussion questions with them, and that gives you a chance to, you know, realize if there's a problem, if they're not understanding the book, then you may need to prioritize that one. The study guides, Janet asked if they're sent home weekly. You'll find that on August 10th, they'll bring up the whole Google Classroom system, and we are in the process of loading, and I would say I'm not doing it, but some very competent people are doing, loading all of the information, and so those study guides will be in a PDF form within your Google Classroom for your English class. So there are actually, you see this one has red lettering. The kind of the old system that the schools used for a long time is that English class was red and culture of history was blue. So you will also see these study guides for many or most of your novels that you read for the culture of history class, and they will happen to be in blue. Just helps you keep them straight if you print them in color, which one goes in which notebook for your child. But they all have this theme tracker type of charts or character development charts. Those, sometimes they can feel like busy work, but if you've ever seen the AP literature exam, guess what? That's exactly what's on it. So those are really important tools for analysis. So the kids who are in the dialectic stage should be analyzing their literature more. And so that helps them kind of process what they're reading. But these are actually published by Paideia, and they're provided to you as part of your tuition. So they're not anything extra that you have to pay. You just need to print them out.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you. Good job. I didn't pay her for all that. She's just really smart. So one thing I would like to add is these study guides can be used as a unit study. So there is always a lot more content in it than what we usually get to in class. We're not going to require you to do every little piece of the study guide, because we also know that, you know, you have other classes and you have a lot of other things to do. But anytime we refer to a journal prompt or something, you'll see that there's journal prompts in the study guide. Also, you'll see what reading you're supposed to do. And there's usually 3 or 4 different charts in a study guide, and we normally don't require the student to do all 4 or all 3, but your teacher will tell you which ones that she wants your student to focus on for that literature study. And this year, speaking of literature, we are really going to focus on 4 main books. We started out with the Epic of Gilgamesh, and it is, Sumerian, some of the oldest.
It is the oldest book ever written.
Yeah.
It's the oldest storybook. I think there's an Egyptian one that's older, but it could be not for the purpose of a story, but something else.
We will be listening to the Tales of Sunuhe, which is one of the oldest Egyptian complete stories that they found. And we will be reading some, before we get into the Iliad, we will be reading some excerpts from Homer's contemporary. His name was Hesiod. He wrote a book called Theogony and one Works and Days. And so we're going to read some excerpts from those. I have the PDF. That's why it wasn't on the book list. It's only 4 pages. So there was no reason to make you get a book for that. And then we followed the Iliad with Homer's Odyssey in quarter 3. And we finish up with the Roman epic, the Aeneid.
And the whole school is going to be reading these in the level that is appropriate for them.
That's right.
The Epic of Gilgamesh, we actually do in G1 and G2 in classroom only, so it's not on the book list, but the kids will be listening to it. And then Dialectic and G4 have a Gilgamesh book that's appropriate for them, and then we have the older version for the rhetoric.
Yep.
And that's the same for the Iliad, Odyssey, and an Iliad too.
That's right. And the cool thing about this is that, like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years. So this will be my son, Joe. We'll just use him for an example. This will be his 3rd time being exposed to this literature. But the previous times were children's versions of it. So he got to know the story as whole, the main who, what, when, where, why. So this year when he reads Fagel's translation of it, which is, nice and thick, and reads the poetry, he's going to be able to really appreciate the words and the way that it was written, and not get lost in the details of, wait, who is this we're talking about again? Because he already knows the story. So that is something that's been really, really cool. Study guides. Thank you, Mary, for covering study guides. In the study guides, so grammar level journal. Okay, down here you'll see my little mouse going around the journal prompt. One of the things you need to know is every study guide starts with week 1, regardless of.
Ms. Cartwright? I'm diligently following along here, but I can't see your little mouse. I can't see a lot of these things you're showing, and I'm trying, but.
Can you see that it says journal on the bottom?
No, ma'am. We don't see any of that. We just see her picture.
Oh. Huh.
I can see Ms. Cartwright muted. I can see Ms. Craig muted.
Can you, let's see, I think it's going to have to do with your,
make the people
view
face
button
smaller.
Your view
button. Yeah, how you're viewing.
Yeah.
Your
The
view
view
options. Yeah. pull down the arrow on that.
There's a blue box. If you go at the top, there's a top right, there's a blue box with 3 dots. You want to maybe, do you want to do that? There's some way you got to make it into one person instead of, does that help?
Well, I'm still trying. I see her now.
Okay, try hide video panel, and that will hide all of our faces and see if you see the share screen on Jen Fruworth's screen, because she's showing a picture of one of the study guides right now.
To speak, safe driving mode.
I'm in side-by-side gallery, so I can see everybody's face on the side panel, but then the other side of my screen is the presentation. So it's side-by-side gallery.
Okay, hold on.
Under the view options.
I can see it over there. Do you see it? What there is over there?
Mr. Prince, are you on a mobile device? Is that maybe part of this?
I'm on a Samsung tablet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, since the family's about to leave to go to Mexico Friday, so I'm trying to cover all this and then figure out how we're going to do this via Zoom on Friday/Saturday half day.
Yeah, I know for me, when I do this on the tablet, if I click the speaker, because it's touch screen instead of, then it'll flip back to the shared screen. I don't know if you've tried that. Sometimes it's funny with those mobile apps.
Yeah, bear with me. I'm trying to figure it out here.
When you put it, I
can see all y'all talking. We can see it flipping, but there's nothing that said we needed to be on a computer. So here we go. Okay, so week 2, is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
Turning it 90 degrees to the right on Android, you can see it. Otherwise, you can't get to it.
There you go.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good.
Back up. All right, we're there. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good.
Down at the journal.
Okay, yes. So if you see this journal prompt down here on the bottom, we're going to be talking about the journals from your literature studies. So, Michelle?
For G3 and G4, they're going to have a little composition book where each week that they have a study guide, and they can respond from their history or their English, but they need to pick a prompt so that they can respond. And every level has a different amount of sentences. So when you're starting out, young, it's only like maybe up to 4 sentences. But then as they get older, they're expected, I think by D1, is it 8 to 10 sentences, or did you go up to 12?
It's 8 to 10.
8 to 10? Yeah. So depending on their age is, a smaller amount, but it's just a way for them to engage in what they're reading and learn to have an analysis of the text.
Exactly.
In writing and thought. It's in their thought and then come out into writing.
Exactly. And on the dialectic, the D1 and D2, we expect them to really be able to articulate that scholarly thought a little bit more deeper as they mature and get older. So sometimes they will have a very basic kind of response, but sometimes you will see that they truly read the material, internalized the literature, the story, what the character was going through, related to it in a way in their own life, and are able to talk about that. And that really is the beginning of literary analysis. And then in the rhetoric level, we call it a literary journal. And it is almost like these kids are writing their own study guides. So they have already went through the dialectic level. They have used the study guides as a learning tool for how to analyze literature and what to think about, ideas to think about. And so as they read, they annotate the text for different literary devices or themes that they're seeing, or character growth, for example. And so they're annotating their book as they go along, and highlighting things, making comments in their books. At least I usually, that's what I encourage kids to do. Own the book, right? Make it their own. And they really enter into the great conversation with the author of the book. They try to see the world, adopt that author's worldview, or see exactly what that author is trying to get them to see about the world in that moment, in that time and space. And then they synthesize those thoughts into their journal, into their paper, onto their journal. And this is absolutely, I said it teaches analysis skills, but it really is analysis. And from the beginning of the year, I see journals that are kind of very basic, students that are just asking questions about the text. And that's fine, that's great. They're just asking, well, why did that character do that? I think that was kind of stupid. Why couldn't they see that was going to happen? Until then later on, they will move through kind of that phase into a phase of the character clearly knew that this was going to happen, as you can see through, this example in the text, and they'll provide an example, and then they'll explain how that example proves their thought. And it's really amazing to see that process happen through the literary journals. And that absolutely is what's going to be expected if you do any kind of AP literature exam, or the AP language and composition. This type of stuff is, if they can write a really good literary journal, they can score highly on.
I think most of our kids this summer did really well. We got a lot of good scores.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if I could say, like, scores aside, I found something from when I went through the program like a bajillion years ago, like 16 years ago. It was really interesting to see just some poetry I wrote on, I don't know what it was. I found it in a box, but I mean, it was just so great to see, where I came from 16 years ago to now, so it's wonderful as a student just to see your own growth. So
that's awesome. Speaking of poetry, this year,
Yay!
It is an ancient poetry guide. And this has been quite the endeavor. I said that I would create an ancient poetry guide, and I didn't really realize what that entailed. But I am still writing this ancient poetry guide. So you're going to get the first 2 quarters, and it's been an amazing experience for me. I have got to have my very own Bible study project, and it's been beautiful. And I'm excited to share it with you, with your families and your kids. So the heart of this was we're in the ancient world, so we're going to study poetry that was written in the ancient world. And guess what? Most of it that we have examples of it comes from the Bible. So I have, whenever possible, I have tied the poetry in with the Bible scope and sequence. So when you're reading something in the history, you're going to see the history charts, and it's going to say Bible reading. And if you're reading, say, anything from 1st or 2nd Samuel, I've tried to put a psalm in for the poetry study that was written by David during the particular time that you read, that the student read about in the Bible. So it really, it's definitely the cross curriculum integration, and helps them to see things in the Bible in a different way, looking at some of the different appreciate it from the different literary elements of it. I will incorporate a lot of modern terminology for poetic devices so that your kids are going to become familiar with things like alliteration and personification and metaphor and imagery and all of that stuff. I'm going to point out instances in the Psalms or other poetry from the Bible that we're reading. I'm also going to be taking a few side lines, and we're going to study some of the devices of epic poetry, because the Iliad, actually Gilgamesh, but all of the books that we're reading are epic poetry, and they have epic heroes, and they all have similar literary devices. So we're going to be looking at those literary elements in the poetry guide as well. And what I'm seeing is that there's, towards the end, towards quarter 4 as I'm going, there's this beautiful integration of the two, because, you know, they were all ancient cultures. So they did integrate. They did, eventually they shared ideas. So I don't know, it's really cool. So that's been a really neat thing. The other cool thing is that I'm seeing that because it's following the Bible reading, the poetry also tells the gospel. So as we follow, you know, from the beginning, and we see the fall, and we see, you know, God's people lost, and, you know, just sold into slavery, and then Jesus, you know. So we see that in the poetry as well. And the very first poem we're going to read is Psalms 104, which parallels the creation story in a poetic. So it's written in, you know, in paragraph form, but it's quite possibly the most beautifully poetic part of the Bible. And that's John 1. So we're going to start reading in the beginning, and we're going to end in the beginning, and see how, you know, Jesus is the Word, and he was with God in the beginning. And I'm just really excited about that. The other thing is you're going to see little icons like this with this little, these are, you'll see this one, and there's also a little icon with a microphone and an icon with a book. Those are hyperlinks. If you click on them, they're hyperlinked videos or scripture online or audio versions of the scriptures, so your kid can listen to it. You can all listen to it being read to you if you want, or whatever that looks like. So
great value for that.
Ancient poetry. And more poetry. So we always do a poetry, usually it's a quarterly poetry project where, you know, sometimes they are writing some big poetry thing. Like last year they did there was a hymn project and a rap poem project. But sometimes it's just it's a memorization and recitation project. And this year it is the same poem, but it's a year-long poetry memorization project, and all 3 campuses, all levels, at some, all levels will be memorizing the same poem. And I'm hoping that we can do a recitation at the end of the year at the awards banquet. But it's, anyway, very going to be very cool. We'll have awards for students who, so every quarter they'll be memorizing a certain number of stanzas as a group. And
Young
then
kids will do a
probably
smaller
what it's
amount.
going to look like. Yeah, the younger kids are going to do a smaller amount, and even the older levels, even if they're supposed to do memorize stanzas 1 through 20 as a group, like Mary, she will, if she has 13 kids in her class, she'll divide that up amongst her students, and they'll each be in charge of memorizing just a portion of it. So it's not going to be that big of a thing. But if any student has the entire poem memorized, which it is entirely possible, students do it all the time, they're going to get a beautiful award that I think Hope even has one.
I do. I have the medal for them memorizing the whole poem. And then Jen, are we doing the pins as well? There are the pins if students memorize their part.
Yes, perfect. Good. Yes. Exactly. Little pins for that. So.
Oh, and they're like lapel pins, not like writing pins. Sorry, just clarify.
That's cool.
So we want to encourage families as a whole to take on the poetry because it's for all levels, so you can work on it together. Smaller portions for the grammar, larger portions for the older kids in this year-long poetry, ancient poetry study guide.
Is that all? Is that all my slides? Oh my
That
gosh.
is the last slide. Yay! I mean, we're ready. We can do it this year.
Whew, that was a lot. That was a lot. I'm just saying, I am thirsty. It's 9:30.
So you just got through your whole year.
We went
English.
over.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Thank you very much, ladies.